Hi everyone, this is Amani from Intuit Hue, and today in this Relationships 101, I'd like to talk a little bit about trauma. So, how did I get here? So, every day I'm looking around at relationships in the world, and my relationships and other relationships, and I'm seeing that people are hurting, really deeply hurting, not only hurting in themselves, but also hurting each other. And I also see that these are people who often really identify with wanting to care for each other. You know, people who say that they love each other, that they want to build together, all of these things, that they want to have a lot of trust and respect and care. So they're really trying to do good by each other. But what I also see is that that's not always what's actually happening. There's just a lot of pain involved. So for a long time, I was very confused by this. And I didn't understand exactly how to make sense of it, especially coming from the United States and a background where we don't really have complex narratives around relationships, desire, love, and how to care for each other. These are not conversations that we're having in nuanced ways often. So for a long time I was very confused how care could coexist with all of the types of pain that I was seeing. So I was asking what's really going on there, and that's what I'm hoping to look at today, and really respond to the question of why do we hurt those that we love? So if you know me personally, you've probably heard me say the word trauma a million times, and whether it's the first time or the millionth time, I think it's useful to define exactly what I'm talking about. So what is trauma? What does that word mean? How are we using it here? So I'm going to offer two definitions. The first definition is a traditional definition. So we're going to look at how trauma is an event or an instance, a big something that happened that was significantly painful or significantly difficult, challenging. That's one definition, but I'm going to offer a second part to this definition, which is talking about daily experiences. How can we talk about how trauma is a daily experience, and how it contributes to the stories that we tell about relationships and moving forward. So in this definition, we can talk about things that are more painful, more deconstructive, more destructive, more challenging, as trauma often seems to imply. But in this definition that I'm offering, I also am including a sense where trauma also talks about the things that we find fulfilling. So what an understanding of trauma really has to offer is that the things that cause us the most pain are often deeply connected to the things that offer us the most fulfillment. So that's something that we can understand through trauma, and we can also understand that it's something we can reclaim. That's a story that we can choose to tell differently if we want to, if we act in a way that we choose to. That's a story that we can tell differently through our daily actions. So again, I started to look at this question more when looking at relationships and having the feeling that we really don't want to be hurting each other. I really believe that we're animals with a lot of compassion, with a desire to connect and to trust and to feel more together, but a lot of times that's not what's happening. So why do we do the things that we do? And looking at more, modern or common examples, I'm sure you've seen people arguing, just going at it and saying, they've been arguing for a while now, and it's like, why are you not understanding this thing that I'm communicating very clearly? Or I've asked this of you and it's just not happening. Or like, why do you keep bringing this thing up? I don't understand why you think that's so important. Like, just really going at it, but also not coming from a place where they're really communicating. So you see a lot of times people are talking at or to each other, but not necessarily with each other. And a lot of the time it seems like we're almost, I believe that we're talking to ourselves, you know. So a lot of times these situations can end in a way that's really difficult to move forward from. So we might have a lot of pain come from those situations, or we're just feeling like we haven't gotten the closure we needed, or we weren't heard, or we weren't supported, or given the answers that we were looking for, despite having asked for it quite clearly when we're able to communicate that. So for example, I've had a partner for quite a while now, and things are dope, things are super great. But when we first met, there were a lot of challenges because I would ask for things that were quite specific, quite insightful about my own process and things that I was struggling with, things I found fulfilling. So I would share those with my partner because they said, you know, I'm interested in caring for you and I love you and I'm investing in you. So I wanted to share some of these things that I was finding to be really supportive for myself. And so I would ask for things like, hey, could you wake me up before you go to work? Maybe just take a couple minutes when you wake up and check in with me, because it helps me feel appreciated and cared for and thought of, that kind of thing. Even if I'm sleepy, you know, I just appreciate checking in. And so I felt like I was being really clear, right, and sharing this thing, and it didn't happen. And this is a conversation we had over about a month and a half or 2 months. We kept coming back to this conversation, and I would continue to share over and over this thing that I found fulfilling for me, and it just wasn't happening. And so obviously I was more hurt, because I'm like, I took the time to share a lot of times this thing that's really meaningful to me, and you're not doing it. So does that mean that you don't care about me? And when I finally got up enough vulnerability to ask, they would often respond with things like, I just thought you'd be tired. You know, I saw that you only got 6 hours of sleep, and I understand that if I were in that situation, I definitely would need like a solid 8 hours. So I just chose not to wake you up, because I thought that that would be, you know, more supportive. I didn't want to wake you up and have you lose sleep. And so I'm thinking, yeah, that makes sense. You know, I understand this person cares about me. They're just thinking like more holistically about the things that I need. So I would ask for other things. And one thing might have been like, hey, could you make a smoothie for me? This is a person who makes smoothies almost every morning. And I would say, hey, could you make one for me when you make one for yourself? That just helps me feel really thought of, you know? I feel really together when that's what's going on. Just when you're making something, you can make something for me also that doesn't take you a lot more effort, and it means a lot to me. And so I would ask for things like this, and I'm like, okay, it's going great. It still wasn't happening. And when I asked again, more frustrated as these things started to pile up, they would say, oh, I didn't know if you wanted one. You know, I was making one for myself, but you were still asleep, or you were out, or this or that, and I just didn't know if you wanted one. And this was absolutely perplexing to me, because I felt that I communicated very clearly what I needed and had asked for. So a lot of times these things come together and they seem like tiny things, right? And this is a time where you might stop and be like, how did this argument become so big? Or maybe someone will say, you are blowing things way out of proportion. Why don't you just let this go? Or you might feel stupid yourself and say, hey, it's really just one thing. Why am I so upset about this? But the thing is that they really come together to mean a lot of different things. So reflecting on my experience, obviously these things for me were not just about waking me up or making me a smoothie. Obviously they came together to form some sort of story around my trauma. And so what I found is that I was telling a story of togetherness. When I was asking for these symbols, what I was asking for is actually ways to know that I was together with this person. So these are things that to me represented a lot more than what I was actually asking for. For me, it was about essentially negotiating how together we were. That's what I was asking for. Now, as more time passed, I started to understand that this person's trauma was, and still largely continues to be, around their body, around their physicality. So when they're thinking about the wake-up situation, what they're thinking is, I need 8 hours. If my body doesn't have that, I'm not going to function through the day. And that's important to me. Around the smoothie, you know, that's kind of a functional thing of checking in with my body and finding nourishment that I need. I'm really looking for physical nourishment, while, you know, when I reflect on what I was asking for, I was asking for some nourishment of our relationship. So that symbol represented very different things for us. And so when I would ask what was going on, the answer would often be, you know, well, I didn't do that because that's not what I would need to feel supported. But when we're trying to care for others, when we're trying to express more togetherness and enact the love that we say we have for someone else, we really need to be able to say, I don't need these symbols to mean the same thing to me. We need to understand that loving others and loving others well means being able to love past our trauma. It means being able to love past what we know, to love past what we think we know, because we don't need to understand It's great if you do understand. It's lovely when your experiences align in a way that you can understand. But we come from such distinct experiences as animals. We're all different. And I have 24 years of experiences now coming together that are very distinct from this person's experiences, even though we're trying to work together. It's very challenging. So we don't always need to understand. We can't expect that we're always going to understand. But what we do have to settle on is that we have to be willing to look past what we think we know. And understanding trauma really does allow us to care more deeply, more fully, more honestly, more consistently for those that we say that we love. So I guess sort of in closing, I want to share a little bit of a practice with you. And that practice to me is the word honor, or honoring. So to define this word, it is what we choose to prioritize, what we choose to act on, what we choose to follow through with. And so really altogether it means, what is the story that we're going to continue to tell? You know, we have these stories of trauma that we build and experience, but honoring is talking about which story we invest in. So in any relationship, we really have the choice to honor our traumas and our fulfillment, or to honor our partners and their trauma and their fulfillment. And hopefully these are things that you can find ways to do at the same time. Hopefully it comes together aligned in that way. That's the ideal. And I generally do believe that that's possible. But the thing is, you have to be willing to do both. You have to be able to do both as well. You know, you have to have the potential to honor someone else's trauma, just to know what that's like. That's a skill that a lot of us lack as we're negotiating the skill of relationships, the skill of loving someone else well, understanding their experience, and being able to offer things that are meaningful. I also just want to note that that does not mean you can't or shouldn't give things of yourself. If you find things that are fulfilling for you, that feel supportive for you, absolutely give that. It's really beautiful if you can give things that really mean a lot to you as well, and to be able to share that with someone else. There's very few things that are that beautiful as feeling connected to something and being able to give that to another person. The problem only comes up, however, when we just feel comfortable giving things that make sense to us. You see what I mean? So really, the problem is when we're unwilling to give anything that doesn't immediately mean something to us personally. So when we re-understand that process, we're really able to love others in a way that hurts a lot less. So I encourage you to look at the trauma of others around you, to look at your own trauma, to kind of try to pull these experiences together and just observe some. So asking questions like, when are they hurting? What do they ask me for? What do they give me when I ask for something? What do they dream about? And really what we're asking as a whole is, what story are they trying to tell? And you can really get a lot of insights by just being present with other people and noticing what they offer, noticing what they don't offer, noticing how they respond to the things that you offer. We're not often practicing enough sensitivity to understand these things, but we have the ability to understand these things if we just go through the process of asking very literal questions, you know. So I just want to leave you with that. And as a question moving forward, you can ask, how can I acknowledge something that has been asked of me and give exactly that? So the practice I'm leaving you with is just to be going out into the world and noticing in all of your relationships the things that people are saying. You have to go a little bit further sometimes than what they're actually saying. Other times you just want to accept exactly what words they give you, what sentiments they give you. But really, be a detective. If you're trying to love and care for others, be a detective. Become an expert at the things that they find fulfilling, the things that are hurtful for them, and everything in between. So I really just want to offer that, and if you can just acknowledge those things for others in relationships and give precisely the thing that they're asking for, I think you'll find that there's a lot less hurt involved, and really just also trying to create a culture of people. Imagine a world where people practice that kind of care and attention and awareness and presence with each other, to be vulnerable and say, you know, I'm looking past the things that are most easily fulfilling for me because I want to love you at a deeper level. So if you want to be able to do that, this is one way that you can approach this question. And with that, I just want to say thank you so much for watching this video. I really have been excited to share this topic and have so much more to share. So expect more videos on the question of trauma, fulfillment, honoring, all of these things together. Please leave comments below if you have any questions, any concerns, just anything that you want to share. What came up for you? I would love to know. And if you think that there's someone who would really benefit from watching this video, please share it with them. We are definitely trying to offer all types of healing, and a lot of us are hurting in relationships, and we can do a lot better for each other. So offer this up to someone who you think can be served by it, who could be supported by some healing right now. And if you have any questions, again, you can comment below. Please subscribe for more content. We're trying to get a lot of videos out right now. And if you want a personal consultation, we also do relationship work through tarot, through astrology, through energy healing, and we can look at the trauma involved in your relationships and help you find something that's more supportive for everyone involved. All right, so again, thank you so much for taking this time to be with me and with yourself, and with love and light, Amani.